welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of X-Men Days of Future Past. So, out of all of the 2014 releases, X-Men was by far my most anticipated film of the year. And not only was I not disappointed by the final product, it exceeded the expectations that I had already coming into the film. So, we're going to just jump right into the positives and what makes this movie so fantastic. So, visually, it is absolutely stunning. So you don't have to worry about that. The effects are amazing. Everything about the visuals is really, really gorgeous. From the dark scenes, to the light scenes, to the powers. It's all just shot very well. It's all very well realized. Past the visuals, though, which you kind of hope are a standard good in superhero films these days, a standard positive that we see in big budget films. The acting is spectacular in this movie, and that's what I've always appreciated about X-Men films, is that they cast actors that are really well suited for the roles for the most part, and that can actually act. And I have to say, this new, younger cast just blew me away with their skills this time. We follow Raven, Mystique, who is played by Jennifer Lawrence, and I have to say, I wasn't impressed almost at all with her performance in First Class. She did okay, but wow, she really blew me away. She gave the character so much more depth personality-wise than it has seen in any of the past X-Men films, and she was finally able to get that physicality and that little bit of edge to the character in this movie, and I think she did really step it up. Still not sure I like her quite as much as I liked Rebecca Romijn as the Mystique character, but she really improved upon her first performance. Michael Fassbender also did very good, very well realized, and very, very evil. He was a great villain in this film and really brought Magneto to that dark, villainous place that definitely Ian McKellen did that as well in some parts, but Ian McKellen has some sort of redeeming factor always about him. You're always like, oh, Ian McKellen. But Michael Fassbender, no, you didn't feel that, you just felt evil. Wolverine also did very well, as always. Hugh Jackman, he is this role. He has brought Wolverine to life, and I know we kind of get sick of hearing his backstory and hearing this and hearing that, but then you see him on film, especially in these ensemble casts when you're not just bogged down by only his story. He shines. He really does great as a character, and he gave Wolverine, much like with Mystique, gave Wolverine so much extra layers this time around and gave us a brand new dimension to the character, even after all these movies that we still had never seen before, and I thought that was really special. But for me, the shining performance came from James McAvoy. Professor Xavier was obviously one of the core people that we focused on, but I don't know that he was necessarily supposed to be the main focus, and he just stole the show for me the entire time. Every time he was on screen, he was amazing. And he gave this character so many layers and such a character arc throughout the story. It was really fantastic. And one of the best performances from an actor that I think I've seen in any comic book film. I think there might be a few still above it, but it was really up there with the best acting performances in any superhero or comic book film to date. It was just fantastic. On to the story. The story is a confusing one with Days of Future Past, with the Sentinels and all of that, and we've been waiting to see Sentinels for a very long time, and we finally got them on the big screen. And they really handled it beautifully. It's a complicated story, but it was easy enough to follow, a film version, and I think they nailed it. They got it almost 100% right, and it just looked great. The flow was fantastic. And I think that's what it is. The directing and the writing were so good. The flow just kept going. You had some serious moments. You were able to really focus in on the actual impact of what was happening, and then you had those lighter moments. And I will say that's what I really loved about this film in particular. When it comes to comic book films, we have really gotten into the custom of dark. I think ever since that Christopher Nolan trilogy, we have really been in that dark place. We want it gritty, we want it real, we want that really dark undertone. And I think we lose the superhero aspect to these movies once we get them too dark and too real world realized. And I think the Avengers did a really great job of getting that fun superhero-y comic book feel. And I don't know that they necessarily succeeded on the realism part as much, and I don't think Marvel movies outside of the second Captain America really aim to feel all that real. I think they are really rooted in that fun comic book, but this film really does the balance well. X-Men, I think, just in general, feel more rooted to me because of what they're dealing with. Obviously, the parallels between being a mutant and civil rights or gay rights, especially in X2, it was really prevalent there. But they really feel like real-world issues. This could very well happen, and this is how people would deal with it. These are the reactions that people would have just because we've seen it already. And I think they allow it to get really dark. The movie starts out really dark with some Holocaust imagery, and those future scenes are really dark, and there are some very emotional parts. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Tearing up a little bit in the theater. But in honesty, it gets really dark, and it allows itself to go into those places. And then there are some really funny scenes, like Quicksilver, which I'm sure you've all heard about by this point. But those are the fun aspects where they just lift it up. We have a lot of comedy interjected, and I think that's the key, is we have that serious tone, and then Bryan Singer knows right when to interject that comedic moment, or the fun time, or uplift it. Get it out of here. And that's where the movie just succeeds so well. Overall, there's really no negatives for me when it comes to X-Men Days of Future Past. There are a couple things that I found a little bit confusing, or maybe not confusing, I think could have been more well realized. One of them is Kitty Pryde's power. We have only, especially in the cinematic universe, been introduced to Kitty Pryde being able to run through walls. So it was a pretty confusing thing for her to, with no explanation or no backstory, or pretty much just because we said so, she can now send people back in time. So I think as an average film viewer, that was very confusing and didn't understand. The other stuff is a little bit into spoiler territory, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But overall, it's a great film. 100% amazing. Saw it for the second time, and the second viewing just made me appreciate it that much more. If you haven't seen X-Men Days of Future Past yet, go out, see it. By far, my biggest recommendation of the year. My favorite movie so far this year. I absolutely loved it. So, thank you all for watching. Love ya. And I will see you all here for my next video. Thanks.